Hey, this is Ray. We're going to do 21 tricks and treats in Tableau for Halloween themed Tableau content. I got to go quick because these only got 15 minutes to do this video. Hoping to do it in a lot less than that, but we're going to dive right in. Just know that you can rewind and fast forward to hopefully get all the info you need. All right, first thing, if you want to do a throwaway calculation, if it's something not going to use anywhere else, you can right click anywhere here, just do a new calculation and put in anything you want. So this is something that isn't going to show up in your field list, but is going to show up here, and you can use it in this view specifically. What you can do is drag that onto a label, create this little question mark, and then in the tooltip, come in here and freeform type, hey, this is a helpful little note. And what people can do is see this question mark, hover over it, and say, hey, this is a helpful little note. And you can put that on a dashboard so that when they come here and they say, oh, projected points, I wonder what the heck that is, you hover over it and it says, considers the team's home and away. Just a nice little way to get some info onto a dashboard without taking much space. Come to this text chart. I want to show you a few things. First of all, any measure you can right click and change the default properties. So if you want to change the aggregation so it doesn't always sum, so it defaults to an average, or even more helpful is if you have a currency, you can change the number format and change the currency to a custom. And that way, every time you drag it on, you don't have to change it to a currency, it just does it by default. Something that you can do is if you have a calculated field, go up here, calculated field, and I'll do assists plus goals. If I want to see if this works without actually saving it yet, I can highlight it and drag it into my measure values and see if it adds up. And that way it's just a little quick troubleshooting tip, so I can look at this and see if it totals, and in this case it does. So then I could save this as points, which I've already done, and a nice little way to troubleshoot. So I'll take that out. Something else that you can do is if you hit Control and drag, you can take stuff out of your measure values and put it into wherever you're going. So a good way to just kind of duplicate things there. So in this case, I'm going to hit Control, take measure values, and drag it onto my color. And now all of this is colored. So if I want, it's all using the same scale. So another thing is if I hit color, I right click measure values and I do use separate legends, now it will all change to show different colors. And in this case here, well, that's really light. I might want to reduce some of this, the difference here. So I can double click this, and this I find is a bit more hidden than traditional color GUI, but if I double click or single click on this box, I can then use the custom GUI, custom color picker. And so that is something that you have down here when you're not using a color on the dimension of the color, but in here you can click and change it like that. And if you go back to this guy and say we have this on color, you double click and then you get this GUI. I've just always found that a bit hidden. So something else, if you want to go and play with these, I find this advanced function is so good to make it the perfect color for your tool. So if I change this to this, then I hit OK, now it's going 2 to 2, and some of these pop a bit more. The lighter ones are between 0, basically between 1 and 1, then everything else kind of pops out. So I love that just for super customization of the color. If you ever want to export this, you can go Analysis, View Data, and it will show you the data of this view only. But as you can see, this is coming out as this crazy crosstab thing and not what you're showing here. To change that, take all of these by hitting Shift, drag them onto your rows. It's going to create this kind of ludicrous series of scatter plots. Do the same thing, hit Shift, grab them all, right click, and do discrete. And from here, you go to Analysis, View Data, and you get the table format that your users might expect. And you can export that from there. Just a little difference between that and this guy is that this guy shows all of your data, whereas Analysis, View Data only shows the data in your view. One last thing on this sheet that I want to show is if you right click on goals and do a filter, say that's fine, then you right click and do show filter. I will get rid of this. You can actually take this range and drag it. So if I want to say 6 to 12, I can hold down to the middle between the limits and drag to show 0 to 6. Kind of a party trick, but it can be a little bit helpful as well. Alright, this here I want to show my losses and my wins in the correct color. If I take my result and put it onto color, what happens is they all go green and red. So this is formatted to this specific team. This black is this team's color, so I don't want to do that. What I do instead is I have this win color calculation, which says if it contains the result win, then result, else nothing. There's no else, and that's kind of the key. I did the same thing for a loss right there. So what I'll do is I'll take them both, replace result on the text with them. You'll see that nothing has changed except for that gap, but we'll fix that. Now I'm going to take this, put it onto the same line, get rid of that extra space, take win color to green, and loss color to red, and click OK. So now those come up individually. A bit cumbersome to always create these, but it's a good way to get that extra little pop. Something else on this that I love to do is if you format your dates, I always pick this custom date. I know there's tons of options here, but they so rarely work for me. I love being able to just put in the specific level of detail I want. So easy to do that here. Something quickly with maps that I love is this is just a map with a couple of cities on it. If I go up here, map layers, I can add a bunch of extra detail to this to show the coastline, to show the terrain, show the break off in the provinces, but I can also go into style and do streets. And now I have this street view, and if I click this, I actually see the motorway. So this can be very cool, make the dots pop a bit more so you remember they exist. But a very cool way if you're looking at routes and that kind of thing. This is a view of every team, and it's showing their points total throughout the year. So one thing I want to do is only show a selected team. So I'm going to create a parameter, call it a string, and I will list, add from field, abbreviation, auto-populates with all these. No, it's not going to be dynamic. Talk to Tableau about that. Call that para team. What I'm going to do is create a calculated field and do color of selected team. Para team equals ABR, and OK. I'm going to put that on color instead. So now if I switch these, it's going to pop out the one that I'm looking at. Let's make these even a bit more distinct. So the orange one pops out, and if I go and I get that parameter, I can swap between these to look at a specific team and how they're doing. I love this kind of chart. Just kind of shows one compared to the rest in a really good way. Something else that's cool is you can set kind of passwords for your dashboard. So let's call this para password. This is a really bad way to implement security, and I don't recommend it. But if I do, I want to do all, and I'm going to set this to tickle. If I then do created another calculated field, which is para password equals tickle, bring work. So the password to tickle, say protect worksheet. Okay, so if I go and I grab this guy and I put it to true, right now I can see everything, but if someone doesn't know the password, you set this to default, it will not show. So this is just a terrible way to implement sheet level security. But it's kind of a cool little party trick if it's internal or there's certain things you don't want to see. Love this. So this is a dynamic label. These are kind of hard because sometimes we want to have a label on a dashboard that says either the team name, but it's a multi-select, so you can't just show the team name. If they pick many, you'll have to show something else. So what this does is I'm saying if the count distinct of the number of teams equals the total number of teams, then show all teams, which is what it's doing now. Otherwise, if it's greater than 1, so if I unselect a few of these, it's greater than 1. So then show count distinct of team plus team. So showing results for 30 teams, 29 teams, 28 teams. And then otherwise, if I only have one team, just do show results for that one team. This is a cool way to do multiple labels depending on how many values you want to show. And then the last thing that I'm going to show you is this kind of neat little thing. If you want to do a new workbook, and sorry for the size, I'm just trying to hide some of the non-public stuff I'm doing. One thing that's kind of neat in here is if you hover left to right, it previews all the different worksheets in that file. If I go across, it previews all the different worksheets in that file. Something kind of neat. And then the very last thing is if I select these and hold shift and select all of these, I can right click, copy, and if I go over here, I can control V and paste them. That brings the data source with it, and I've just pasted a bunch of worksheets over onto here. Brand new workbook. So if you want to send just a subset of your workbook to a teammate, or if you want to start a new workbook based on what you've previously done, very quick way to just copy a bunch of these and paste them over. So that has been 20 some tricks in 21 tricks, and I don't know how long, but hopefully there's some value you got out of that. And if I can figure out how to stop the recording, I will. So have a good Halloween. Take this little tricks with you. Give them out to the children that come to your door. They'll be really happy that they're getting Tableau info instead of chocolate. Take care.